Have you ever felt a shiver down your spine? A whisper of unease when everything seems perfect? What if the most dangerous secrets aren't hidden in the shadows, but right out in the open? Cloaked in smiles and everyday kindness, this is the story of a town where trust was a currency. A hero with 4 paws and a hidden truth that would shatter everything they thought they knew. Welcome to Silver Creek. Nestled deep in the heartland, it was the kind of place where kids still played outside until dusk, neighbors left their doors unlocked, and the annual Kindness Week festival was the highlight of the year. People here believed in community, in looking out for one another. And at the very heart of that community was Mr. Silas Finch, the beloved school groundskeeper at Maplewood Elementary. Mr. Finch wasn't just the man who kept the soccer fields pristine and the flower beds blooming. He was an institution. Always a gentle wave, a story for every child, and a pocket full of peppermint candies for anyone with a scraped knee or a frown. 9 out of 10 parents would tell you, "Oh, Mr. Finch, he's the salt of the earth." His warmth was a constant, a comforting presence that made Maplewood feel less like a school and more like a second home. It was into this seemingly idyllic setting that Officer Alex Carter arrived. Young, determined, and still finding her footing as a K9 handler, Alex was paired with Leo, a magnificent golden-colored Labrador. Leo was certified impeccably trained for search and rescue with a nose that could find a needle in a haystack. But for all his accolades, Leo had never faced a true high-stakes emergency. He was a hero in waiting a diamond, yet to be put under pressure. Their assignment to Maplewood was part of the county's new Safe Schools initiative. A program rolled out after a few minor unsettling incidents, a missing lunchbox. Here, an unlocked classroom door there. Nothing major, nothing alarming, just tiny cracks in the perfect facade. Alex dismissed them as unfortunate coincidences. The town believed them to be isolated quirks. But Leo had other ideas. From the moment Leo's paws touched the gleaming linoleum floors of Maplewood Elementary, he was different. His usual easygoing Labrador wag was absent. His intelligent eyes, normally full of gentle curiosity, were fixed, scanning, analyzing. By the end of the first week, a strange pattern emerged. Every time they passed the old disused storage shed behind the gymnasium, a place filled with forgotten sports equipment and dusty paint cans, Leo would stop. Not a hesitant pause, but a deliberate, rooted halt. He'd lower his head, his powerful nose twitching a low, almost imperceptible growl rumbling deep in his chest. It wasn't aggressive, not a warning bark at a perceived threat, but something far more unsettling, a sound of certain wrongness. Alex, practical and logical, tried to brush it off. "Must be old paint fumes, buddy," she'd murmur, tugging gently on his leash. She even joked about it to Mr. Finch once, laughing it off as a typical K9 quirk. But Mr. Finch didn't laugh. His smile faltered for a fleeting second, his eyes darted to the shed, and he offered a strained chuckle. "Ah, dogs just get funny around old equipment, officer. Nothing to worry about." That explanation might have worked on anyone else, but Alex carried a ghost with her. Months ago, with her previous more experienced K9 partner, she'd dismissed a similar intuition, a series of subtle alerts during a search for a missing hiker. She'd rationalized it away, trusted the GPS over the nose, and the search had dragged on, ending in a tragic outcome. That failure haunted her, a cold knot in her gut. She'd sworn then she would never ignore her partner's instinct again. So as Leo's low growl persisted, a seed of doubt began to sprout in Alex's mind, slowly overriding her logical explanations. 2 days later, the quiet tension snapped. It was Thursday, the halls buzzing with children lining up for lunch. And then, Leo froze. His nose lifted, his hackles rose, and in one fluid, powerful motion, he lunged toward the storage shed door, his teeth bared. Alex yanked him back, the leash tightening sharply. And then he barked. Not a random, excited yelp, but a single piercing warning bark. The kind he'd only used once before during a harrowing training exercise that simulated a child in deep distress, hidden and silent. Mr. Finch, appearing suddenly from the other end of the hall, wiping his hands on a rag, seemed too calm, his voice too high-pitched. "Whoa there, what's the matter, buddy?" Alex's eyes narrowed, her voice low and steely. That's the 5th time he's reacted like this, Mr. Finch. What exactly do you keep in that shed? Mr. Finch chuckled, but the sound felt hollow. Old mops paint storage stuff, groundskeeper things. Alex wasn't convinced, and clearly neither was Leo. Mind if I take a quick look? She asked casually, already moving towards the door. Mr. Finch's hand shot out. Oh, actually, I was just about to tidy up some spilled paint in the art room. Can I get back to you in 5 ooh? But Alex had already seen it. A heavy-duty industrial padlock on the shed door. Not a simple latch. A thick, rusted lock that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. And it wasn't just the lock. As Mr. Finch spoke, his eyes darted nervously to the other side of the school towards the rear exit. Alex didn't say a word. She just met his gaze, then quietly, firmly radioed for immediate backup. The clock had just started ticking. The idyllic facade of Silver Creek was about to crack wide open, revealing the terrifying secret hidden in plain sight. What they found inside that old shed, and the chilling truth behind Mr. Finch's kind smile, would change everything. The air in Maplewood Elementary moments ago, alive with the chatter of children, had turned eerily silent. Officer Alex Carter, her heart pounding, a frantic rhythm against her ribs, stood firm, her hand on Leo's leash. The school was already in a controlled lockdown. Students quietly ushered into secure classrooms, their innocent faces reflecting the sudden unexplained tension. Every second felt like an eternity. The principal, a stern but fair woman, approached Alex, her face etched with concern. What's going on, officer? Alex's voice was low, urgent. My K9 is alerting strongly to that shed, principal. And we have a report. Ethan Hayes, 3rd grade. Hasn't been seen since recess. A chill colder than any November morning swept through the empty hallway. Ethan. A quiet boy, often lost in books, easily overlooked. The perfect target for someone who sought invisibility. Backup arrived in a blur of flashing lights and hushed commands. The heavy padlock on the shed door was breached with a single sharp crack. As the door swung open, a stale metallic odor not unlike old pennies and damp earth hit them. Leo, usually so eager, didn't lunge. Instead, he moved with a deliberate, almost sacred calm. His nose led him directly to an old workbench, its surface scarred with decades of use. Beneath it, hidden by a stack of splintered plywood, was a loose floorboard. It was painstakingly camouflaged, almost impossible to spot with the naked eye. Alex nudged it with her boot, and it slid aside, revealing a gaping maw of darkness. A set of crudely constructed wooden stairs led down into the black. Her flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing not a messy storage space, but a meticulously planned bunker. The walls were lined with sound-dampening foam, crude but effective. There was a thin mattress, a few dog-eared books, and on a small makeshift table, a calendar. Days were meticulously crossed off, not in neat rows, but in a frantic, desperate scribble. It spoke of a child's attempt to cling to time, to sanity, in a place where time had no meaning. And then in the far corner, curled into a ball, smaller than she remembered, was Ethan. Silent, his eyes wide, unblinking, fixed on nothing. Alex knelt, her voice a soft murmur. Ethan? My name's Officer Carter. This is Leo. You're safe now. The boy didn't flinch, didn't move. He was a statue carved from terror. His clothes were worn, his hair matted, but in his trembling hand, clutched so tightly that the paper was creased and damp, was a small, crudely drawn picture. A stick figure of a boy, and beside him, a large golden dog, its tail a triumphant plume. It was Leo. Ethan had met Leo briefly during a school assembly weeks ago, a fleeting interaction. Yet even in his darkest moments, the image of that gentle Labrador had been a spark of hope. Leo, sensing the fragile silence, moved slowly, deliberately. His tail was low, his steps measured. He let out a soft whine, then gently, ever so gently, nudged his head against Ethan's knee. It was then that Ethan blinked. Just once. But it was enough. It told Alex everything. This boy was still in there, holding on. Doctors later called it trauma mutism, a common heartbreaking response in children who've faced prolonged isolation and emotional abuse. It's as if their voice, their very being, retracts inward, seeking refuge from a world that has failed them. We often see it in extreme cases where the brain, overwhelmed, simply shuts down, protecting the child from unbearable pain. But the power of an animal, particularly a dog in these moments, is profound. Their non-judgmental presence, their unwavering calm, can physically alter a person's state. Studies show that merely petting a dog can lower cortisol levels, the body's stress hormone, and reduce heart rate. It's a silent, instinctual form of therapy, a connection that bypasses the need for words, reaching straight for the raw, wounded core of the soul. Leo was not just a dog. He was a bridge back to humanity for Ethan. Meanwhile, upstairs, the search for Mr. Silas Finch had begun. He hadn't panicked. Security footage showed him calmly walking out the rear staff exit, just 5 minutes before the shed was breached, a mop bucket in one hand, a small, discreet duffel bag tucked under his arm. He wasn't a man fleeing in terror. He was a man executing a well-rehearsed escape. The facade of the kind groundskeeper had completely crumbled, revealing the chilling calculation beneath. Silver Creek, once so trusting, was about to learn a terrifying truth: the most dangerous monsters don't hide in the dark. They smile in the daylight. With Ethan safe but silent, and Mr. Finch vanished into thin air, the clock was ticking. The fight to heal a broken boy had just begun, and the hunt for a master manipulator was far from over. The world outside the hospital room continued its frantic pace, but inside time seemed to slow, governed by the quiet breaths of a boy and the gentle presence of a dog. Ethan Hayes, still encased in a shell of silence, found his only comfort in the golden Labrador by his side. Leo didn't demand words or eye contact. He simply was. Hour after hour, he would lie patiently beside Ethan's bed, a warm, furry anchor in the boy's turbulent world. Sometimes, Leo would let out a soft, contented sigh, a sound so natural it seemed to melt some of the tension from Ethan's rigid shoulders. Alex, watching, marveled at the subtle magic. She'd bring in soft plush toys, and Leo, with deliberate slowness, would nudge them towards Ethan's still hands. Once, during a particularly difficult therapy session, where Ethan began to rock slightly, Leo gently rested his head on the boy's lap, his big brown eyes offering unwavering, non-judgmental solace. It was a silent conversation, a profound connection that transcended human understanding. Therapists explain the science. A dog's presence literally lowers cortisol, the stress hormone calming the nervous system. But Alex knew it was more than science. It was soul. It was Leo's unwavering belief that Ethan was still in there waiting to be found. Days bled into a week, then another. The hospital room, once a place of sterile quiet, became a sanctuary of small victories. One afternoon, as Alex was preparing to leave, Leo shifted, nudging a tiny stuffed Labrador toy towards Ethan. And then it happened. Barely a whisper, a breath escaping a lifetime of held-in terror. He said I was a ghost. Alex froze, her heart catching. It was the first time Ethan had spoken since his rescue. She knelt beside him, her voice barely a whisper. Who said that, Ethan? The boy's eyes, still wide, but now holding a flicker of recognition, darted to Leo. He didn't just hide me. Ethan whispered the words, gaining a fragile strength. He tried to erase me. The raw honesty of it was a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about physical captivity. It was about psychological torture, an attempt to strip away identity. But Leo, in his silent partnership, was helping Ethan reclaim himself piece by agonizing piece. Meanwhile, outside the confines of the hospital, the hunt for Mr. Silas Finch had exploded. This wasn't just a local investigation anymore. The FBI had joined the task force. Leading the federal effort was Agent Marcus West, a seasoned profiler with a reputation for sharp intellect and a healthy skepticism for anything he couldn't quantify. West initially saw Leo as a lucky fluke, a prop for the media. "We need hard evidence. Officer Carter, not canine intuition," he'd grumble, poring over maps and surveillance photos. Alex, fiercely protective of Leo, bristled at his dismissiveness, but she knew the stakes. The search was exhaustive. Finch had vanished without a trace, a ghost in his own right. Credit cards were cold, bank accounts dormant. It was as if Mr. Finch, the kind groundskeeper, had been a phantom all along. But Alex and Leo kept digging. They returned to Maplewood Elementary, Leo leading them to subtle clues the human eye had missed: a dislodged brick behind an old boiler, a faint impression in the soil near the back fence. It was Alex's perseverance, fueled by Leo's subtle cues, that led them to the chilling discovery in a forgotten box in the shed, a meticulously kept journal. Inside, Finch had documented not only his vile plans for Ethan, but also a disturbing list of other children's names, all quiet, introverted, just like Ethan. And most chillingly, a coded reference to a location: the Den of Whispers, an abandoned, crumbling warehouse on the outskirts of Silver Creek. This man wasn't just impulsive. He was a calculated, prolific predator. The raid on the Den of Whispers was set for a moonless night. The air was thick with tension as Alex, Leo, and Agent West's tactical team moved in. The warehouse was a labyrinth of shadows and rusted machinery. Leo, his golden fur almost luminous in the dim light, moved silently, his nose high, his entire body a finely tuned instrument. They found Mr. Finch in a back room, calmly setting up a makeshift cage. He looked up, a chillingly calm smile on his face. "Officer Carter," he said, his voice as benign as ever. "Just tidying up." But as Alex moved to apprehend him, a glint of metal flashed. Finch reached into his jacket, not for a stun gun, but for a gleaming hunting knife. Before Alex could even shout, Leo launched. Not a wild attack, but a perfectly executed textbook takedown. His powerful jaws closed around Finch's knife arm, pinning him without breaking skin, just enough pressure to disarm and immobilize. The snap of the knife hitting the concrete floor echoed through the vast warehouse. Tactical officers swarmed in, cuffing Finch, his expression finally cracking a mask of pure fury, replacing the benign smile. No weapons, just a fake ID, and the chilling list of names in his pocket. Some from Silver Creek, others from towns hundreds of miles away. Back at the precinct, the air was thick with a new kind of silence relief. Agent West, usually stoic, approached Alex. He looked at Leo, then back at her, a profound shift in his eyes. He extended his hand, a rare gesture for him. "Officer Carter," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. He nodded towards Leo, who was now calmly resting at Alex's feet. He wasn't just a dog. He was the key. We almost missed him. We almost missed everything. It was an admission, a testament to the power of intuition and the undeniable bravery of a silent partner. The hunt was over, but the journey of healing for Ethan and the ripple effect on Silver Creek was just beginning. The capture of Mr. Finch brought a fragile peace to Silver Creek, but the scars remained. The next chapter would unfold in the courtroom, where a quiet boy would find his voice, a brave dog would take the stand, and a town would begin to heal, one whispered truth at a time. The fragile peace that settled over Silver Creek after Mr. Finch's capture was deceptive. Beneath the surface, the town braced itself for the next battle, the courtroom. This wasn't just about justice for Ethan. It was about protecting every child, every quiet soul from the shadows that lurked unseen. The trial of Silas Finch began with a chilling formality. He sat at the defense table, his once warm smile replaced by a cold, blank stare that sent shivers through the gallery. His defense team, a slick, formidable duo, launched their strategy: discredit the child, dismiss the dog. They painted Ethan as a traumatized, suggestible boy, his memories distorted by fear. They argued that Leo, the brave Labrador, was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated prop, a theatrical device designed to sway public sentiment and an emotional jury. "Can a dog truly testify, ladies and gentlemen?" The defense attorney sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Can we trust the ramblings of a child who was silent for weeks? This is not a courtroom, it's a circus of sentimentality." The cynical words twisted a knife in Alex's gut, but she knew the truth resided not in their logic, but in the unwavering bond she shared with Leo, and the nascent voice of a brave boy. The emotional climax of the trial arrived when Ethan Hayes was called to the stand. The courtroom held its breath as the small boy, dressed in a crisp navy suit, too big for his slight frame, walked slowly, his hand clasped tightly in Officer Alex Carter's. And by his side, walking with a calm dignity that belied the tension in the room, was Leo. The judge, after a week of intense legal wrangling and a passionate plea from the prosecution, had made a groundbreaking decision. Leo would be permitted to sit beside Ethan on the witness stand, not merely as a comfort animal, but as a recognized partner. The defense attorney scoffed, but their arrogance was short-lived. The prosecutor, a sharp, compassionate woman named Ms. Albright, began her questioning gently, creating a safe space for Ethan. As she guided him through the harrowing memories, the defense attorney interjected, his voice sharp, trying to rattle the boy. "Young man, are you sure you weren't just playing a game? Perhaps you misunderstood Mr. Finch's intentions." Ethan flinched, his eyes darting to Leo. And then it happened. Leo, who had been lying calmly at Ethan's feet, suddenly lifted his head. Not a bark, not a growl, but a low, resonant rumble deep in his chest. A protective, undeniable sound that vibrated through the silent courtroom. It was his training, his instinct, his loyalty, all rolled into one. It was a dog's testimony clear as day. Ethan looked down at Leo, placed his small hand on the Labrador's head, and took a deep breath. His voice, though still quiet, was steady, filled with an unwavering truth. "I wasn't scared of the dark," he said, his eyes meeting the jury's. "I was scared of being forgotten. Mr. Finch, he told me no one would come. He told me I was a ghost." Gasps rippled through the gallery. A juror openly wiped away a tear. Ethan's grip tightened on Leo's fur. "But this good boy." He looked at Leo, a profound gratitude in his gaze. "He remembered me. He wasn't scared of my silence. He just heard it." The defense attorney had no further questions. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of Ethan's words, amplified by Leo's silent support, hanging heavy in the air. The truth, in its simplest form, had been spoken and heard. The jury took less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Silas Finch was sentenced to life without parole, his reign of quiet terror finally over. But the ripple effect of Ethan's courage was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, other victims, children who had been too afraid to speak, began to come forward, empowered by Ethan's bravery. Silver Creek, once a town defined by its quiet charm, was now defined by its resilience. At the town square, a small bronze statue was unveiled. Not of a hero with a gun, but of a small boy sitting head bowed in contemplation, and beside him, a golden Labrador, its paw gently resting on the boy's foot. A plaque beneath it read, "To the children who were found, and to the ones who found them, listen to the whispers." The experience had profoundly changed Alex and Leo. Their bond, forged in crisis, now had a new profound purpose. Officer Alex Carter, with Leo by her side, was invited to join a national task force for child protection and canine therapy. Their mission wasn't just about apprehending criminals. It was about prevention, about healing, about reaching out to children who were suffering in silence. They would travel to schools across the country, running training programs, teaching educators and parents to recognize the subtle signs of distress and showing children the incredible power of a silent guardian. It was a new calling, a path that led them directly into the hearts of those who needed them most. The trial was over, the monster caged. But the true legacy of Ethan's courage and Leo's unwavering intuition was yet to be fully realized. In the final chapter, we'll see how a boy who was once a ghost and the dog who heard his silent scream would inspire a new generation to listen, to heal, and to never ever be afraid to make some noise. The silence that had once haunted Ethan Hayes was now a source of strength, and the town of Silver Creek, once so trusting, was now vigilant. The ripples from that hidden shed had spread far and wide, transforming a community from complacency to proactive care. Silver Creek became a blueprint for change. Schools across the county implemented new safe zones, designated areas for students to go if they ever felt unsafe, equipped with discreet communication lines to trusted adults. Mandatory training sessions for all school staff, no matter their role, focused on recognizing subtle behavioral shifts in children, the quiet cries for help. Parent-led community watches became more organized now, collaborating directly with the local police department, and notably including K9 units for regular patrols around school perimeters. It was a tangible shift born from a painful lesson. Trust was still essential, but it had to be earned constantly, re-evaluated and bolstered by awareness and action. Ethan, once the quiet boy who faded into the background, blossomed. He wasn't just the boy from the shed anymore. He found his passion on the soccer field a blur of motion and laughter. He poured his experiences into art painting canvases vibrant with color and emotion. And by his side always was Leo. Their bond had deepened into something unbreakable. It wasn't just about healing. It was about a shared purpose. On school visits with Officer Alex Carter and Leo, Ethan would speak not of his victimization, but of the importance of listening. He'd hold up pictures he'd drawn depicting abstract shapes of fear, and then a golden paw reaching out, transforming the darkness. He spoke to the younger students not as a survivor, but as a guide, teaching them to trust their own instincts and to look out for their friends. His quiet voice now carried the weight of profound experience, inspiring hundreds. The culminating moment arrived at a national conference on child safety. Ethan, now a confident teenager, stood on a brightly lit stage. He began to speak, his voice clear, but then a familiar flicker of overwhelm crossed his face. For a moment, it seemed the old fear might return. But then he did something profound. Without a word, he knelt, and Leo, sensing the moment, calmly walked to his side, resting his head on Ethan's knee. The vast audience watched in silence. Ethan took a deep breath, placed his hand on Leo's soft fur, and looked out at the faces before him. "When I was in that place," he began, his voice gaining strength, "I learned that silence isn't empty. It's full of things we need to listen for. Mr. Finch thought he erased me, that he silenced me forever. But Leo heard my silence. He taught me that courage isn't always a roar. Sometimes it's just a whisper, and sometimes it's a quiet thump of a tail, reminding you that you're not alone." A wave of emotion swept through the auditorium. People wiped away tears, nodded and understood. The most powerful messages are often the ones that don't need words. Years passed. Leo, now with a distinguished dusting of white around his muzzle, lived out his retirement by Alex's side. His days filled with long naps in sunbeams and gentle walks through Silver Creek. One quiet afternoon, Alex found him curled on the porch, softly snoring. Beside him, a young man, tall and strong, was quietly reading a book. It was Ethan. He looked up, a soft smile on his face. He gently stroked Leo's head. "He taught me everything." Ethan whispered, his voice deep with gratitude. "He taught me to hear what others can't, and to speak for those who are afraid." Alex knelt, stroking Leo's fur one last time. The golden Labrador stirred, blinked his wise old eyes, and let out a soft, contented sigh. He had saved a boy, transformed a town, and sparked a movement. This story, the story of Ethan, Alex, and Leo, is a powerful reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes they have fur-wet noses and an uncanny ability to hear the quietest cries for help. It reminds us that trauma doesn't have to define a life, and that connection, especially with our animal companions, can be the most potent medicine. So the next time you see someone withdrawn, quiet, or seemingly lost in their own world, take a moment. Lean in. Ask yourself, what if the bravest thing they're doing is trying to be seen? What if they're whispering and no one is listening? And remember, some of the most profound truths, the most urgent warnings are spoken not with words, but with the loyal eyes, the subtle nudges, and the unwavering presence of a silent furry friend. If Leo's story moved you, if it made you think differently about the unseen battles people fight or the incredible intuition of animals, please share this video. Let's make sure that every whisper is heard and every silent scream finds its voice. Consider supporting organizations that train canine therapy dogs, because sometimes an angel truly does have paws.